Please tell us your name.
Thomas E. Lee.
And you are a sergeant with the police department, or with the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Department?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
There. We have your name behind you.
They left out my middle initial.
How long have you worked for them?
For the sheriff's office, 20 years.
All right.
Still employed.
You have recently had the occasion to be involved in reviewing with Rader, Dennis Rader, the matter of the death of Marine Hedge. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
All right. And how did you come to be involved in this case?
It was assigned to me when I was a detective in 1991.
All right.
And I've been working on it since then. And I was contacted in the latter part of February 2005.
Okay, so you were not originally involved in this case, is that correct?
No, ma'am, I was not.
All right. But as a part of being involved in it and being assigned to it, did you have an opportunity to review the body of the case that was collected when her body was originally discovered?
Yes, ma'am, I have.
All right. Now, originally, it was not clear when Miss Hedge had died. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Because she originally was an individual who was reported as missing.
Yes, on April 27th, her son-in-law reported her missing of 1985.
All right. And she was not found for some time. Is that correct?
It was approximately 10 days or so later.
And that was the time period when her body was actually found in the county.
Yes, ma'am, it was.
Did she live in the county?
No, ma'am, she lived in Park City.
And they would normally have a law enforcement division that works independently of the Sheriff's Department. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Although their jurisdiction is actually inside Sedgwick County.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know when the Sheriff's Department actually became involved in investigating the matter of Marine Hedge?
I believe it was on the 5th of May, 1985.
The date that her body was discovered?
Yes, ma'am.
And why was the sheriffs involved in that?
We were requested assistance by Park City Police Department.
Okay. Now, there's a screen behind you. Are you aware how old Marine Hedge was at the time she disappeared?
Yes, ma'am. She's 53 years old.
All right. And the photo, does that accurately depict, and a photo given to us by her family of how she appeared?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Do you have any idea what her size?
Yeah, she's 5'2", weighed 100 pounds.
So a very small woman.
Very small lady.
Did you have the occasion to learn from the BTK task force that was working on this matter that they needed your assistance in interviewing Rader about the details of the murder of Marine Hedge?
Yes, ma'am, it was. I was contacted.
And you became aware of that on the day that he was arrested, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
And so what did you do in response to that?
I went over to the FBI office, Epic Center. I, along with Special Agent Chuck Pritchett of the FBI, interviewed Mr. Rader.
Okay. And as you were going into that interview, you had some familiarity with the things that your department, the Sheriff's Department, and Park City Police had learned about her disappearance and the discovery of her body.
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
So you had acquainted yourself with the investigation, witnesses that had been interviewed, the results of the autopsy, etc.
Yes, ma'am.
And you took that information in with you to interrogate Rader.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's talk briefly about what's on the screen. Others have indicated that he referred to his individual victims as projects. Did he have a name for Marine Hedge?
Yes, Marine Hedge was nicknamed Project Cookie.
Now, you were aware as part of the investigation, where Marine lived. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And where did she live?
At 6254 Independence in Park City, Kansas.
All right. And you are now aware of where Rader lived in Park City, Kansas. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And where was that?
6220 Independence, which would be south of her location, her residence.
Did he talk to you about the fact that he lived on the same street?
Yes, ma'am.
What did he tell you?
He did know who she was, not her full name. He knew her as probably first name basis, and he on occasion had waved to her as being neighbors.
Okay. Did he indicate to you whether he had watched her actions?
Yes, he knew when she returned home at night because he had observed her.
I'm going to show a screen that shows the family of Marine Hedge. Do you recognize that to be a family picture?
Yes, ma'am, I
And
do.
she's in the center of that picture?
She is in the middle.
All right. Thank you. There's a screen behind you that I think the pointer, the laser pointer is right beside you, Sergeant. Can you point out what's depicted here?
This is where Dennis Rader lives, his residence.
Okay.
Marine Hedge's residence at that time.
Can you point out Independence Street, please?
Independence Street is here. It goes from Keachai Road, which is just off of 61st, and goes north and then curves to the west.
Okay. Thank you. So she was literally just up the street.
Just up the street from his.
Now, in addition to telling you that he'd waved to her as a neighbor, had he done some additional trolling, if you will, or stalking of Marine Hedge?
Yes, he advised me that he knew she worked at a cafeteria or at Wesley Hospital, in which she worked at a coffee shop. She worked from 2 p.m. to midnight.
In fact, he indicated that he had actually been there and seen her. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that is true.
Thank you. Now, did he describe to you kind of his anticipation of this and planning of this matter? And
He stated to me that if he could really pull it off up there right by his house, it'd really be a biggie.
like it was some additional thrill if he could get this done?
Yes.
Now, in his home, was he living there with his family?
Yes, ma'am, he was.
And this would be a picture of that home, 6220 Independence, Park City, Kansas, where Dennis Rader lived with his wife and children.
Yes, ma'am, that is his house.
Thank you. And the next screen, 6254 North Independence, Park City, Kansas, is that the home of Marine Hedge?
Yes, that is her residence.
Now, that particular photo was taken more recently, is that correct?
Yes, that was taken this year.
All right. Because a photograph had not been originally taken of her home at the time of her disappearance.
There was a photograph taken, but it didn't turn
Depict
out.
this.
Yeah, it
And-
was overexposed.
And that may not be unusual when law enforcement begins first investigating just a disappearance because you don't know if there's something criminal involved.
Yes, ma'am, that's true.
Thank you. Now, he went on to describe further for you kind of how he felt about this high, if you will, or this biggie of being able to knock off his neighbor. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Tell us what he told you.
He told me it was really bad for a guy to knock one of the neighbors off. It's not good for a serial killer because you don't want to kill in your own habitat. It's not a good sign. It's not good serial killer business.
Okay. So as if he were tracking what would be good serial killer business.
Away from his residence.
Right. Go ahead, please. And that back door that he could look out to see Marine Hedge, is this a picture of the back door of the Rader home?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
All right, thank you. Rader, did he begin describing for you what had taken place?
He advised me that this was probably one of his most complicated hits.
And what did he express to you that meant?
He meant because I asked him what he meant, and he advised that he used a taxi and had a lot of maneuvering to do to accomplish his task.
All right. In fact, in the investigation of this case, there was a situation that had occurred. She had disappeared, and then her car was later discovered.
Yes, her car was located at 21st and Woodlawn and Brittany Square parking lot.
Right. And so the investigation was focused on trying to figure out how her car got up there. Is that right?
That is correct.
And so in discussing the facts of this case with Rader, did he explain to you how that happened?
Yes, he had advised how the car was placed there.
All right. Could you explain to us how that did happen?
He basically advised that his plan was he went to the bowling alley at that location. He went scouting first, and then he used the ruse of having a headache and went to bed early, and he had parked his car up on a hill. And then about at 8:30 or so at night, he left, went to Andover, changed out of his scouting uniform, put his darker hit clothes on, went over, parked his vehicle near the bowling alley, went into a bar and obtained a beer, drank some of the beer and poured some of it on his clothes, called for a taxi to come and get him, and then when the taxi arrived, had the taxi transport him near his residence, acting like he was intoxicated, not able to drive, and so forth. As he got near his residence, he had the taxi driver drop him off. He wanted to walk it off before he got home. After the taxi left, and then he went through the park area to her residence.
Okay. Now, I believe at the time that Rader described his actions, he said he had another commitment. He was referring to that his commitment was a Boy Scout event.
Yes.
All right. In fact, in the interview, a Cub Scout event, excuse me. In the interview, he told you that where he was. Is that
Yes,
right?
he was at Tawakoni, Camp Tawakoni.
And he called it a Cubby thing.
Yes, Cub Scouts.
And so the opportunity came up. He was out there with the Cub Scouts, and he decided to kill Marine Hedge.
Yes, the opportunity was there, and that's when he decided to do it.
Now, he further describes that there is a screen behind you that basically, in his words, he describes why he uses the cover, if you will, of the Cub Scouts. Could you explain that to us?
Yes, he advised it's good cover for a guy like him to go out and camp and slip away at night when everybody goes to bed, park somewhere else, and leave.
Go ahead. Now, when there were search warrants executed at Rader's home, and there are photographs behind you that were seized at that time indicating that he's in Boy Scout uniform. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And in the course of these interviews, he indicated numerous times that he had a constant involvement, essentially, with Boy Scouts.
That is correct.
Thank you. And as you earlier described, how he got out of the Cub thing was to say, "Oh, I got a headache."
That is correct.
Go ahead, please. And then drove to Andover, and once he got to Andover, he had to get in his hit clothes. Now, why did he have to get in the hit clothes?
His hit clothes were darker, being nighttime, harder to see. They're also more maneuverable
Than the scout clothes.
than the scout clothes.
Okay. Now, the park that he had the taxi driver drop him off in, where is that located?
That's a little behind Marine Hedge's residence.
And it's also kind of behind his residence. And
Yes,
we'll
ma'am.
have a map here in a minute so we can look at it. But when he described that he already knew this park because of its location, he also told you or mentioned to you that he had gone his pathway. Is that correct?
Yes, he had crossed his in-laws' residence,
Okay,
their
so
backyard.
by in-laws, he means his wife's parents' yard.
Yes, ma'am.
On his way
To
to
her
the
house.
killing of Marine Hedge.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, that map is there behind you now. There's the pointer. If you'll point out, that's the same map essentially we're looking at with an additional point to show where the park is. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, and it's a very, very small park
Very small.
and very narrow. Can you show us? I believe he indicated he got off at West Park View Street. Can you? It's on the other side. Can you show that?
West Park View is right there.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And this photograph would indicate from his backyard, a photograph that was taken at the time the search warrants were executed, in the direction of kind of where the park is. It's not that good of a photograph, but it does give you a directional view from there.
Yes, ma'am, it does.
Thank you. Now, in speaking with him, he described how he got in and the manner in which he entered her home.
That is correct.
In the original investigation, one of the things that was originally disturbing, although she was reported as disappearing, was that her phone lines were cut.
That is correct.
All right, and that was noted as part of the investigation, and you knew that going in.
Yes, ma'am, I did.
What did he describe about how he got into you?
He advised that he snuck up onto her back of her house, cut the phone lines with a pair of wire cutters. Took him a long time to get to the house. Saw her car was in the carport. Didn't really think she was going to be there. And when he found out her car was there, he went into his cat burglar mode. And then when he finally got to the rear door, he used a long screwdriver and popped the door to get in.
Okay, so in this description, he describes himself as a cat burglar.
Yes, ma'am.
And then she wasn't there. He thought, oh, shoot. Is that how he described it?
Yes, ma'am, that is.
And this is an original crime scene photograph that was taken to note that cut line. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
And then, of course, he said he went through her back door. Is this also an original crime scene photograph of that back door?
That is correct.
Now, on that screen, just a second. That's okay. There was some effort to determine whether or not there had been forced entry in that home.
Yes, ma'am, there was, but the door was very old.
And it was hard to tell.
Yes, it was hard to tell whether there was any new damage.
Once he got inside, he also told you some additional things about his thoughts about what was going on and then what happened to cause him concern.
He advised that when he entered the house, he basically crept around through the house because he thought she was still there. And after searching the house, found that she wasn't. And again, he said, oh, shoot. And then he heard a car door slam outside and heard two voices, one a male voice, in which they were coming to the house. He then went into one of the bedroom closets and hid. He basically advised me that he did not want to confront another male and have another bright incident.
Okay. And we've heard that discussed by other officers here. So he waits in the closet.
He waited in the closet. He advised me for quite a while.
All right. And until she went to sleep, and then he indicated to you he jumped on her.
He advised that he waited in the closet for quite a while. He heard the male leave. He waited a little while longer, crept to the bathroom, turned the light on, saw that she was laying in the bed, and immediately jumped on her.
Okay. And he also indicated he puts his hand on her mouth.
Yeah, she started to scream, and he put his hand over her mouth and started to throttle her, as he called it.
Now, he also indicated he had some desires as have been similarly expressed with other victims that he wanted to tie her up and take pictures. Is that
Yes.
correct? And this is a crime scene photograph of her bed without bedding. Is that the condition her bed was found in? When it was first originally noticed by her son-in-law, Rod Hook, is that correct?
That is correct.
That she was gone. He's the one that made the original
Yes,
report.
she was gone and the bedding was gone.
All right. And that was reported as unusual.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, go ahead. Now, he continues to describe to you also some conversation again about how, are things that we have not yet heard.
Yeah, he advised me that she stated what in the hell's going on, and he just yada, 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 kind of. Told me that he thought she was going to be raped or something, He got her under control. She tried to fight, and he just was right on top of her, advised there was no way. She was small, and he was a lot larger than she was.
And so he indicates that she's kind of yada, 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 but he knew that she thought she was going to be raped by him.
Yes.
And in fact, as you said, she was a smaller lady, and she wouldn't have been able to compare or be able to protect herself very well from Rader.
That is correct.
Go ahead. Now, he used, as you've already said, the word throttled her until he got control, and then he handcuffed her and finished her off. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
When he said throttled her, did he describe that for you?
Yes, ma'am. I asked him what he meant, and he demonstrated that he choked her with his hands.
All right. Did he stand up to do that?
Yes, ma'am, he did.
Did he walk around and describe this?
No, he just stood up in front of me and showed me how he did it.
Now, he also said something with that he may have also used another instrument in addition to that.
He advised he thought he might have used a belt, but then he thought about it and says, no, I used my hands. I throttled her.
Okay. Now, but he does tell you he handcuffed her. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am, he did handcuff her.
Now, earlier Judge Waller saw a picture, a fuller picture, actually. This is a crop of that same picture, but handcuffs were found at his home while executing the warrant, and this picture demonstrates that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And under those handcuffs, a bandana that might be used for a gag as well.
Yes, it is possible.
Thank you. Go ahead. Now, after he throttled her, she was, as he expressed, dead.
Yeah, he advised she was dead and she didn't come back.
All right. Some of the other people that he had strangled before did come back.
Yeah, he advised that some people have come back. He said it wasn't as easy as the movies make out, that it does take time. Your hands have to be strong. They get cramped. He advised to use a massage ball to strengthen his hands. Just a couple, 2 to 3 minutes usually what it takes.
And so he said because that strangulation process with your hands is so rough, it's sometimes kind of nice to have a little leverage. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am, that's true.
And what kinds of things did he like to use for leverage, and in what manner would he use them?
Use a belt or a rope and twisting method.
So once you get the rope or belt around, you just twist it?
Yeah, you just twist it and choke them out.
Makes it a little easier than using your hands.
Makes it a lot easier.
Now, the picture behind you, another picture taken during the execution of the search warrant, and Rader's, I think this is his shed actually, behind the home, showing that he has, and this is only one of the many places where he had ropes and belts and those leverage instruments. Is that correct?
That is correct.
But this does demonstrate at least one place where he kept those.
Yes, ma'am, it does.
Thank you. Now, she's dead. What does he do then?
He advised he stripped her and wrapped her up in her blankets. He had the keys already to her vehicle. He went outside and popped the trunk open and put her in the trunk.
Now, those are his words.
Those are his
Pop
words.
The trunk.
Pop
to
the
get this
trunk.
body in.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Go ahead, please.
Advised that Marine Hedge was the first one he'd ever dealt with a dead body, where he had to move her. I couldn't believe how heavy she was, even as small as she was. He got her out to the car and put her inside.
Okay, so this is the first time, in his words, he's killed the Otero family, he's killed Catherine Bright, he's killed Shirley Vian, he's killed Nancy Fox, and now he's killing Marie Hedge, and he's moving her, and he can't believe it.
Yes, ma'am.
And as we know, she had no bedding on her bed.
That is correct.
And when her car was found, part of the investigation revealed, and this is an original crime scene photo taken at that time when her car was found, and all of her bedding was in that trunk. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. Now, he had a plan for Marine Hedge. He didn't conceive of this plan when he was at the Covey thing. He had it before that. Is that correct?
Repeat that, please.
He described for you in this interview with him a plan that he had to do with her body. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, it was.
And what was that plan?
He advised he was going to take her to a barn and have his way with her.
Okay. And in fact, he said he had a barn all rigged up with some plastic.
Yes, he advised he had a barn where he had the plastic and other items already there, that he has a thing about barns.
Now, and that is something that he had expressed not only to you, but in other interviews, that he liked to strangle things in barns. Is that right?
That is correct.
All right. In fact, what did he tell you about that?
He advised that when he was younger, he used to kill cats and dogs, hang them in the barns, wrap them up in baling wire and hang them.
And he
Just
says,
a kid thing.
just one of those things I did. Is that a quote from him?
That is what he said.
And usually it was the stray cats.
Stray cats.
Go ahead, please. Now, he's telling you about how he wanted to take, now he used her name, he called her Marie sometimes.
Yes.
But her name is not Marie.
No, it is not.
Her name was Marine.
Marine.
All right. But he took the liberty of referring to her in a more casual way.
That is correct.
All right. Now, he's telling you all about his ideas about barns, and then suddenly it makes a little change on you, doesn't he?
Yes.
What's
He advised that this isn't what was going on. It wasn't honest. He wasn't going to take her to the barn. He took her to her church.
Now, you may have been viewing, or you may have been viewing the plea made by Mr. Rader. And he indicated, and I think there may have been some confusion at that time, because he didn't describe fully what he did at the church, did he?
No, he did not.
Well, let's take a look at that, because he did describe that to you, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Let's go to the next screen. Next screen. That's back. Just a moment. Having a technical difficulty. All right. Now, he knew eventually that some of his stuff or stash or mother lode would be located by law enforcement now that he'd been caught.
That is correct.
So he knew that this barn theory about taking to a barn was not going to fly.
That is correct.
And what did he say about that?
He advised that we'd know as soon as we saw the pictures that it definitely was not a barn.
Yeah, the pictures that he took of Marine Hedge were not in a barn.
That is correct.
Now, did you ask him about which church it was that he took Marine Hedge's dead body to?
Yes, I did.
And what church was that?
It was Christ Lutheran. It's on Hillside.
And that's what he told you? He told you where it was?
Yes, ma'am.
And that it was across from Heights, which is Heights High School.
That is correct.
But he also indicated, and I think currently there is a newer building there than there was at the time that he took Marine Hedge's body there.
Yes, that church has been rebuilt.
All right, but at the same location.
Same location.
Now, what did he do to prepare the Christ Lutheran Church for the delivery of the dead body of Marine Hedge?
He advised that he'd already had items there, which were plastic covered windows and tacks. He advised that when he pulled up, he took her out of the trunk, laid her in the fir tree line along the roadway, went in, covered the windows up, had turned the lights on, went outside to make sure there's no light showing.
No, wait. He got the plastic that he'd already stored there,
Yes,
and he puts it on the windows
That's
with
correct.
thumbtacks.
with tacks.
Then he goes and checks to make sure no one can see inside the church at night.
That is correct.
Go ahead.
Then he went out and brought Marine Hedge inside.
Now, before we get to that, another thing found in the properties and possessions of Rader during the execution of search warrants were various places where he had rolls of black plastic.
That is correct.
And these two pictures demonstrate that. In addition to that, in his stash, there were other Polaroid photographs found that Rader had taken of himself, wrapped and bound in plastic.
That is correct.
Now, we don't know where those were taken. Is that correct?
No, we don't have any idea.
Because at the time we were talking to him, we had not found these particular bondage pictures.
We had no knowledge of these pictures at that time.
All right. They aren't black plastic, but they are plastic.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Go ahead, please. Now, did it matter to him whether she was dead or alive?
No, he advised me that she was going to the church. Either way, alive or dead, she was going.
So, even though he had this fantasy about barns and like those, in this instance, he was going to direct that fantasy at that church.
That is correct.
All right. And then he indicates to you, and I think he told us that the bondage got him in trouble, and then he had my time with her.
That is correct.
Can you tell us what he meant by my time with her?
What I think he meant was that he used all these bondage, different poses, and took pictures.
And in fact, in his mother lode, there were more than 3. We have 3 here today. The least graphic, if you will, 3 photographs taken by Rader of Marine Hedge, bound in the ways that he desired in a sexually explicit manner. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. We are going to be showing 3 photographs at this time that viewers may not want to see. So if you do not want to, please lower your head. This first one is a photograph taken in that church. Marine is on the floor. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And she is dead, and that is in the basement of that church.
That is correct. That is the bedding from her bed.
I think you could see black plastic in the background, and this is another. We have blurred part of this photograph, so it is not as explicit as it was when it was in the hands of Rader. But that is, other than that, an accurate depiction here on the screen of what he had in his possession.
That is correct.
Another way in which he thought would be a good way for her to be posed for his picture taking.
That is correct.
Thank you. Go ahead. She wasn't, he had high heels as part of this and other apparel. We have hose and a gag around her mouth, etc.
I have no knowledge where he obtained those,
Okay, thank you.
whether he brought them or already had them.
But he did tell you how he did it.
Yes, ma'am.
And tell us what he told you.
Told us that he photographed her in different poses. She was dead, and we would find the picture sooner or later.
Okay. Now, we have 2 more Polaroids of poses that Rader crafted. Again on the floor, again in a different position, so, and then to the next one, please. Okay, go ahead, please. All right. Did he tell you how much time he spent in that church basement with the black plastic up, moving her in all these different positions and tying her up in various ways?
He did not tell us any time. We did have knowledge from interviews that the boyfriend left at approximately 1 a.m. on the 27th. Rader advised that while at the church, the sun started coming up and he had to leave, get back to the scouting thing. He had to clean up, get rid of everything, and clean himself up. So, 5 hours probably.
There was we don't have to go back to, but there was a picture behind you, which I know you're aware of. It was a crime scene photograph of pantyhose that were found with her body. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. And these were used to bind her. The mark states it's at number 20. Reach in there and get those out for us. These are those pantyhose that were found with her body,
That is correct.
and they have knots in them as if they were tied in some fashion around some portion of her body. At this time, we don't know which portion,
No, ma'am, we do
but
not.
possibly several ways. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, these were collected by Greg Shawner,
By
the
Greg
Sedgwick County
Shawner.
Sheriff's Department, and have been maintained in the custody of the Sedgwick County Sheriff's Department until and used for court purposes.
That is correct.
Thank you. Now, you had mentioned that he tried to clean up after he had killed her and bound her. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, just earlier in the Fox case, he thought his call was a bold move, but in this instance, he actually went back into the church to clean up.
That is correct.
Because as he told you what? He didn't think anyone would challenge that.
Yeah, didn't think there'd be any problem with somebody bothering him, phone calls, coming to the church. If he was cleaning up, that's the church he went to. It was not
He was a
uncommon for him to be
congregational-
there.
He was a congregational member.
That is correct.
All right. You also indicated that one of his concerns was the daylight coming. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And to him, he started to panic.
Started to panic. He needed to get back to the camp,
Back to the cubbies.
to the cubby.
Go ahead, please. And then, so he didn't leave her in the church basement.
No, ma'am, he did not.
He loaded her back up in the trunk of her car
In her car.
and found a nice place to dump her.
Yes, ma'am.
And that nice place is where?
Quarter mile east of Webb Road on 53rd Street North,
And that's where
Which
she was
there's- which there's a drainage ditch, which he basically said he just dumped her in there.
Okay. And exactly that's how she was found, dumped.
Yes, dumped in the culvert in the water, covered her with pampas grass and fern trees.
Okay. Photograph I just showed you, the photograph I just showed you and this one indicates that area and was taken at the time her body was found, May 5th. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. Can you, with your pointer, kind of point out the area of that ditch where he dumped her?
Right in here.
All right. Now this, as I have come to understand it by the descriptions, this was an area in the county that other individuals used for as a dumping ground.
Yes, Mr. Rader advised me that he knew that was a dumping ground, and there were 2 carcasses of 2 dogs also in the ditch.
There were also dog carcasses there
That
with
is-
the body of Marine Hedge.
That is correct.
We're going to show 2 crime scene photographs taken of that ditch and the body of Marine Hedge. This actually is very difficult to see where she is, but there was material on top of Marine Hedge. Is that correct?
That is correct.
As if someone had tried to additionally hide her body.
That is correct.
Did he talk to you about trying to cover her in some fashion?
He advised he just covered her up with what was there.
Can you point out for us kind of where her body is in that photograph?
Right here.
All right, thank you. Go ahead. Now, after dumping her there, he goes to the cubbies, but then he gets a little bit worried about that evidence.
That is correct.
What evidence is he worried about?
He advised he felt that he left some cords there, and it was scared of what law enforcement could do with the cords. He told me he went back the next day, which he then said he went Monday, which the 27th was a Saturday.
Well, and cord two, at that time, this is in 1985, at that time, there had been a number of murders in this county that have been visited today where cord was used, so that could connect him to the BTK murders.
That is correct.
So he goes back to her body, finds it, and stops there early in the morning and retrieves that cord from her body.
Yes.
Okay. And recognized that she was already starting to decompose.
Yes, he advised she was starting to decompose. It was quite smelly. He did obtain the cord real quick. He had changed his boots not to leave similar tracks. Did it real early in the morning and left hurriedly.
One more photograph of her in the ditch. This is after the brush has been removed. And can you point out, so her head and face
Her
are...
head is right here.
Right. And then her body extends to the right.
Extends here.
Thank you. As we've become aware of Rader's collections, he strives for media attention, and he saves some archives. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And these are just a sampling of those, and these are archives as they pertain to the death of Marine Hedge.
That is correct.
Now, he also indicated, as he has in the Fox matter, that he took some stuff.
Yes,
What
he
did
did.
he tell you he took?
He advised he took a driver's license and some small jewelry, but he also had taken her purse and had ditched it upon going back to Brittany Square to dump her vehicle. He had thrown out a blouse that she was wearing that night and a purse he had thrown off the side of the road.
Okay.
And he also got rid of the handcuffs.
Now, when he was telling you he said he took some underwear, maybe two or something. Did he describe that? That he may have picked up some underwear?
Yeah, he may have taken some underwear. He wasn't sure.
But he indicates that, it really wasn't nothing real big.
Nothing really big.
But in his stuff with the Polaroid photographs that he kept for his memory of the death of murder of Marine Hedge, there was a ring. Is that right?
That is correct.
This has been removed from that Polaroid package, but you've seen that package.
Yes, I have.
And it was inside an old plastic bag.
Yes.
And this ring, part of State's Exhibit number 20, was in that bag. Is that right?
That is correct.
And the State would move for the State's Exhibit number 21.
No objection.
All right, 21.
And move for 20. Thank you.
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, I'll move to 20.
But this not really big stuff was actually a mother's ring.
That is correct.
I have no other questions. Thank you.
All right, Ross.
No questions, Your Honor.
This witness be excused. All right, thank you. You are excused. We'll be in recess until 10 after 3.